So welcome everybody. I'm Steven Andersen, an avid runner and running nerd. And thanks for joining us. Today we're talking with Reid Coolsaet, who is I don't think he needs any introduction, a 2:10 marathoner, two-time Olympian, and 14-time Canadian champion. Is that right?
Yep. Yep.
So how's it going today, Reid?
It's good. Yeah. Just another day. I don't know what day of the week it is. It all kind of seems the same these days. Weekends are different because my wife's not working, but, got 2 runs in today, plenty of time with the kids. Not as much outdoor time as we'd like because it was snowing, but yeah, it was good.
Great. So we'll get started just with some quick rapid fire questions before we get into the meat of it. So my first one for you is what's your most memorable race?
My most memorable race would probably be the 2011 Scotia Toronto Waterfront Marathon, for a few reasons. One, we had a lot on the line, trying to qualify for the Olympics, and then the conditions. It was just really windy that day, and it really made us change our game plan and stuff like that. And just the crowds and everything. So just kind of a mix of all that made it a very memorable day.
Okay. And then this one was a really popular one when we spoke to Melindy Elmore last week. Is what's the race you'd most like to forget?
Oh, yeah, you asked me about that, and that's a tough one because, you often learn a lot from the races that you want to forget. Of course, I dropped out of one marathon, the Rotterdam Marathon in 2013. I was sick leading up to it, and I thought I was good enough for it, but yeah, so dropping out of a marathon, and I walked the last 7K just because I figured it was the fastest way back to the finish line. So yeah, it was a lonely walk, and people, I saw my bib on. People are asking me, if I was okay and stuff like that. So yeah, I could do without that one.
Okay, I think everyone's had a similar experience probably. What's your favorite workout?
I think my favorite workout is um, VO2 max workouts, and it's probably because I don't do them that often. And with the increase in rest, I run a lot faster than I normally would in any other tempo or other interval workouts. Um, and I usually leave those workouts with a lot more confidence just because running a faster pace.
Okay, least favorite workout.
Um, I'd probably say, I mean, just any time where I've gone out too hard, and I'm really struggling towards the end to, you know, hit certain goals, hit paces, and stuff like that. So it's not a specific workout, but more of just a feeling of being too tired and um, the splits going the wrong way, not the right way.
Fair enough. I can tell you for sure I do that a lot. So favorite shoe.
Right now would be the Pegasus Turbo 2. Um, yeah, I mean, it's just like a good all-around shoe. I'll use it for long runs. I've done the last couple of workouts I did in them, and yeah, they just feel good. So yeah, Pegasus Turbo.
Nice. Just a couple more here. Actually, just one more. Favorite running route.
Dundas Valley, Spring Creek going west, and then Monarch on the way back. It's the rolling hills. It's a tough route. Um, it's not like in the Alps or anything like that, but yeah, it's along the Niagara Escarpment and Dundas Valley, and there's very few people like on a weekday in those trails, so it's just nice. Yeah, really good.
Okay, and I lied. Last one. If you could do another Olympic sport, what would it be?
Um, if I had the talent, I would now, because it's going to be an Olympic sport in 2021, to be skateboarding. I think that would be I would think that'd be the funnest sport.
Not cross country skiing. I know at one point you did an actual race, right?
Yeah, I did. I think if I were actually to um, try for one with the talents I have, the second sport would have to be, yeah, cross country skiing or cycling. And I don't know if I'd ever make it that far, but of course, being an endurance athlete, they would be the closest ones that come to mind.
You never know. You could pull a Rusty Woods on us.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so before we get back to the fun stuff, I have to ask you about, obviously Canadian athletics has gone into a bit of uh, a new phase recently with issues surrounding power dynamics and sexual harassment and all of this stuff. And of course, you had a great relationship with Dave Scott Thomas. And so I just want to kind of get this out of the way and ask, what was your original reaction to the story when it came out? And can you tell us anything about the culture of the team at the time, and why maybe there wasn't that response or people didn't know at the time?
Yeah, good questions. I'm glad you asked. So, well, before I get into when I read the story, because the article came out in February, um, and in December is when I heard the news that there was a relationship between Megan and Dave. And then I talked to Michael Doyle quite a bit about the article coming out. We had about a 2-hour conversation, and he was just asking me questions about everything, and just really filling him in on kind of the stuff you asked. I won't talk for an hour 45 here, but um, uh, so I so just between the questions he was asking and like looking back, I could piece quite a bit together. But then when I read the article, it, I still wasn't prepared for it. And Michael even emailed me the night before and said, "Hey, the article is going to come out tomorrow. It might be, it might be upsetting, just to warn you." And I said, "No, thanks." But then when I read it, it was like beyond anything, and it was, it's surreal to read stuff like that. To think someone, and then also, you know, one of the trips that was in that article was the 2002 um, national cross country champs. Megan won, and I was on that trip. And we took an RV and stuff, and so I remember that particular race because I was trying to qualify for the World Cross Country Championships. I didn't qualify. I forget where I finished, but I wasn't in the top 10, and I didn't get to go. I was, at the end of my university career. Yeah, we had. I can't remember. Maybe must have been. There was more people on that particular Moncton trip than we could fit in the RV. So there was also a minivan as well, and yeah, there was like memorable moments from that trip. A deer ran off the highway and smashed into the side of that RV, and we couldn't use the side door. Had like go out the driver's door and stuff like that. So yeah, a lot of the stuff, like I remember it, and of course, you read the article and you look back and you're like, the first thing that jumps into a lot of our minds reading that article and people who are around was, what could we have done? What did we see? And there's a lot of second guessing, and for weeks, it's like, okay, I saw Dave and Megan, go on a walk. Did I think anything of it at the time? No. The only thing I thought at the time was just that Dave was spending like a lot more time with Megan than the rest of the athletes, and some of us were like, okay, like we're over here too, and like, but we didn't think anything, inappropriate was going on. You know, and then yeah, when Dave told, this was years later as well, I guess, 3 years later, when Dave told a few of us that someone in Megan's family had brought forth information to the university about like misconduct. Um, like when we left that meeting with Dave, it wasn't even like, we never even said, like, question like, did it happen? We just thought, oh wow, like, I feel sorry for Dave that he's had to go through that. Like, like he tried to help Megan for all these years. Now he's going through this. We feel sorry for Megan because, something's wrong in her life where she has, like, she's reaching out for attention. And so, that was really I guess the mental kind of like outlook that we had at the time. it just seems so far from Dave's professional attitude to the sport and just the way he conducted himself. Um, so yeah, it was just it was a real shock. Um, and yeah, I mean, I read that article and I feel guilty that like I had such a good relationship and I had a really good time at University of Guelph. Like my university career, was, we won titles and we made good friends and, we had like a lot of laughs and stuff like that. And everyone deserves that sort of career, like the camaraderie and a good relationship with your coach. Right. So yeah, I feel guilty that I had that at the same time, someone's going through the worst time in their life. Right. So, there's a lot of, you read the article and there's just a lot of guilt and a lot of just second guessing about, did we see anything? No, we didn't see anything, but like, could we have done something? And, in hindsight, of course we could have, and hopefully what we learn going forward from this is that, a coach should never be alone with an athlete, and if you draw the line there, then that's how you prevent these things from happening again. Versus, maybe you see a coach and an athlete alone and you think, well, they're spending a lot of time together, but something's probably not happening, like now we know that's not good enough. And so, yeah, well, I mean, the main thing is we don't want this to happen again. And I think talking about the story and thanks for asking the question is a good way to move forward and not have this thing happen. Because, yeah, like I said, reading that story was, yeah, I mean, I felt sick to my stomach. So brutal.
Yeah, fair enough. And thanks for that. And I don't want to dwell on this too long, but I do have one quick follow-up. Obviously, Dave was banned for life from Athletics Canada. So I'm assuming you agree with that ruling. And then what's kind of, have you talked to Dave since? Have you talked to Megan? What's the status now?
Yeah. So yeah, Dave's banned from coaching, which is not a surprise. I don't I don't think he would be able to coach anyways. I don't see anybody, who would after, you read that article. So that's, to me, that was like kind of a no-brainer that was going to come down. And the other question, yeah, no, I haven't talked to him. I think the last time we connected would have been, well, early December, late November. I think like early December before I found out the truth, and then way before the article. And yeah, I have talked to Megan. All things considered, what she's gone through, bringing her story public, which would be very hard to do, and I commend her for her bravery and all that. All that. She's doing really well. I mean, she just has a new baby, a new baby girl, and yeah, we had a good conversation a couple of weeks ago, and I mean, it's sad, but it's also interesting that we can kind of fill in, like we both have questions for each other, and kind of helping each other, deal with certain things. And she's just such a positive person. I got off the phone and I almost couldn't believe her outlook and how positive she is, and just how ready she is to move forward, and how, for what went on, like the peace that she has, like, with herself. So it was a really good conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much for all of that, because I know it's probably tough to talk about as well. So let's move on to some running related stuff, which is why we're all here. So my first question is, I'm obviously a big running nerd fan, and I shared this on Twitter today, but the replay of the 2011 race, which you say is your most memorable. So can you just talk a little bit more about that? Walk us through your race plan. You went for the first time, probably, if I recall, in your career with the lead group, so the East Africans. And what did that do for your career?
Yeah, I mean, that race did a lot for my career because it was on CBC television live, which doesn't happen that much. Now it's, everything's streamed, and so you'll still get the running fans will go to it, but it might have just been a Sunday, and a casual sports fan or whatever just clicks on CBC, and the Canadians got a decent amount of coverage. So it did a lot for my career. And then, and of course, uh, nailing that Olympic spot. Now I was able to call myself an Olympian, and not quite then. I guess I still had to wait to make sure no one beat my time, but um, that that did seal it for me. But yeah, going into the race, I wanted to go out at like basically 2:10 pace, and I had one pacer. And the night before, the forecast was brutal. The winds were going to be brutal, and I've had bad pacers before. My first marathon ever, I had two pacers, and one didn't last 3K. So luckily, the second pacer lasted 25. He was great, but if I was just stuck with that one pacer, like 3K, you don't really even need a pacer for 3K. So I didn't know this pacer from Kenya, and so I was having doubts about being left alone with this huge wind. So I thought, if I just go with the leaders for the first 13K, then at least I'll have that going into the wind, and then we'll have a tailwind, and whatever happens after that. You can't really plan on much from 30K on. But I went with the leaders. We went out really quick. We were through halfway, just a bit under 64 minutes. And I was still feeling pretty good. I had to stop 22, 23K to use the bathroom. Jump back on the course, and my pacer was great. He stopped as well, and then brought me back up to the lead group. At about 35K, there was only three of us, Kenneth Mongara and Diwat, and that's why I was really like getting excited, like, oh my goodness, like I might be able to win this thing. And then at 37K, it was like, okay, I just gotta hold on and get to the finish. I went from, am I gonna get the Canadian record, to losing track of splits, and didn't even think I was gonna PB. I honestly thought I was going to run 2:12, and I was like, oh, that's too bad. Dylan and Eric won't get their Olympic qualifying time either. And I come around Bay Street, and I looked up at the clock, and it still said 2:10, and I just got this jolt, and I just like went for it, and cursing myself for having screwed up the splits, and then finished in 2:10:55, and then looked around, and then I saw Eric coming up a bit later, and I had this, like I said, I had this thought that like, oh no, like Eric's not gonna get the times. Eric and Dylan will get the time standard. They'll have to go again in the spring, and then I'm kind of looking at the clock and looking at Eric, and of course it came down to like less than a second. So Eric, got his Olympic qualifier as well. I think Dylan came, I think, sixth in that race, ran, I believe it was a PB at the time, 2:12. So yeah, it was a great day for the three of us. Dylan went to go qualify later in the spring. And yeah, finished third at Scotia. I think it's still my highest finish at a marathon, third place. And yeah, I mean, it's just such a memorable day on so many accounts. And being in Toronto, if you can run well in Canada, it just means that much more. The crowds know you, and the reporters at the finish line actually want to like listen to what you have to say. They'll tell your story and stuff like that. I can go and I've run that exact same time, 2:10:55 in Fukuoka, and I walk off there, and it's like I could have finished. I mean, I think I finished 6th or 7th that day, but I could have been 50th or 100th, and I would have got the same reception at the finish line almost. It's just kind of like, grab your towel, get your banana, like move along. So it makes a huge difference running Canada. The crowd support is just amazing.
All right, and then my last question for you, before we maybe open it up to the floor. So if you do have a question, you can either throw it in the chat, and I'll answer it, and I'll read it off to Reid, or you can raise your hand. There is a raise hand function there. I'm not exactly sure how to do it. Raise your hand, and we'll just go down the list. And yeah, but one more for me first. So I have a bunch. So once I asked you for advice for up and coming runners, and you told me that, and I'm paraphrasing here, talent or results in school are not everything. No one should be, no one would have pegged you as an Olympian when you were in university. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey from that place to the Olympics, and perhaps some advice, because I know we have some kids on here, for younger runners who maybe want to run professionally in the future?
Yeah. Well, it, so at the beginning of high school, in grade 9, I was the alternate on the cross country team. And then um, by the end of high school, I was the top guy in our cross country team. And I finished 18th at OFSA. That's our provincial cross country championships. And I figured, like that's good enough. I should continue on and run at university. And then when I got to university, first year, same thing again. I was the alternate my first year for the championship teams, and um, by my fifth year, I was the top guy at the university again, and then after university, I did the post collegiate thing, and I was kind of at a time in my life where I was still improving quite a bit, but I wasn't going to be a professional runner. So I ended up getting a job first at a running store, but then at a bank where I was able to work 5 hours a day, which was perfect. I think for anybody that wants to pursue running seriously after university, um, my advice would be either to do a master's or a PhD or something like that. If you have a good advisor, and you can, because I've seen that happen a lot, where you have a good advisor, they understand sport and they let you train enough, and you're still working towards something, or you get a job that's in the 25 to maybe 35, depending on what the job is, 25 to 35 hours per week. 25 for me was perfect. I could do a little run in the morning, go to Royal Bank, come back at the end of the day, do my big workout. And in 2005, I made the World Championships. I got carded. I was sponsored by Nike, and then I was basically like a supply teller after that. And then I just didn't work enough, because they would call me in for like a full day, like 8 hours, and no, I can't miss practice. So in 2005, I got carded, and I just thought, okay, I'm going to focus full on running for the next 3 years, see if I can make the Olympics. And now I've been doing that for 15 years. So I've just been like addicted to trying to like catch the next goal and somehow making it work. And in the last like year, financially, it's been not good, but I'm not complaining. But it's tough to make it as a professional runner, especially when there's no races.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. At least there's no travel costs, I guess.
Yeah. Well,
So,
there's never travel costs for me. That's
well,
that's the good. Like the races provide that, but yeah.
even better. So if anyone owns a big company out there, Reid needs more sponsorships. That's what I'm getting. We're going to go down. I'll alternate kind of chat and then video questions. So we'll start with Brian's question. What do you look for in a target marathon? So I guess like qualities other than as flat as possible.
Yeah, it's a good question. So when I was chasing the Canadian record, I just skipped Boston and New York and went for flat courses. And then on top of that, I would look for races where there were people moving at my pace. And believe it or not, that was actually really tough, because if I race in Canada, they'll often provide pacers. But if I go race, in Berlin or Rotterdam, I basically just have to get on whatever pace the Germans or the Dutch guys have asked for. Luckily, it has worked out in the past. When I've gone to Japan, the first time I went to Fukuoka, it was flat course, typically good weather. So often guys running 210, 209 there, but they do it going out at 206 high pace. And so that's what happened. I went out at, I think through 15K and 15 or something, right? So like 301 per K through 15K, like, too fast and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, not traveling that far is good. Less time zones, less time, but I was still able to make Fukuoka work well a couple times. So I'm not too intimidated by travel, but if I don't need to, that's better. But yeah, Pacers is a big one, or at least a pack of runners going at my pace.
Okay, great. So then we'll go to the video, and Jared, you're next.
Oh, hi, Reid. Um,
Hey.
Pleasure to see you in the flesh. Well, not the flesh, but by video. And actually, to ask you a question. So, due to the epidemic and races being canceled and everything, how would you deal with having a race canceled that you invested months and months of training into? And how do you deal with it mentally? And would you do a virtual version of that?
Yeah, good question. So first of all, I'd get pissed off, and then I'd probably get sad, and that's fine. Even if you completely agree with the race being canceled. So, for instance, I was going to race the Prague Marathon, and I was really looking forward to that. And with the races getting postponed or canceled, I agreed 100%. I wasn't going to travel on a plane and put people at risk and stuff like that. But that doesn't mean I can't be pissed that, that the pandemic is happening in the first place, right? Nobody wants this. And, I had this goal. I trained, training really hard for it. And, so you can, spend some time and be pissed and be sad about it. And then refocus. So unfortunately, the weird part about refocusing now, is that the targets are still moving. We don't know when we're going to race again. That makes things, for me, that makes things really tough. So, and would I do a virtual race? I would never do a virtual marathon, because I know that result's going to be far from what I would be able to do. If it was a 5K or 10K, I still wouldn't run that same distance. So I coach a bunch of athletes, and if I have them do a virtual, if there's a virtual race that they really want to do and they're excited for it, by all means do it. And if they really want to just test themselves, I would probably pick a different distance, something like 7.5K or 4K, something you're not going to compare your PBs to. At least for me, I'm not going to go run a solo whatever distance it is as fast as racing. So I have to put that into perspective and context as well. But just having a big effort often leads to breakthroughs in training. So if you're feeling healthy, you're not putting anything at risk, I think it's a good idea to have a big effort, where, you can taper a little bit for it. Do your normal pre-race routine, whatever that is, listen to certain music, drink your coffee, whatever. And then have a rip at a bit shorter distance that you were going to plan on racing, and hopefully that just helps your training.
Thanks for that question, Jared. So our next question is, how do you think the postponement of the Olympics for a year is going to impact your qualifying prospects?
Well, as far as opportunities, postponing the Olympics to 2021 doesn't really affect it. And in fact, for marathoners, it could be better, because I was going to have one shot at it, and that was going to be in May. Now, theoretically, if things go according to plan, you could do a marathon in December and then another one in May. So you could get two shots at it. So that's not that's kind of like not a big deal at all. I'm not getting younger, so I would have liked to have raced earlier. But I have been improving a little bit each half a year block since I had my kind of a longer injury in 2017. And I always kind of look at the years kind of like in in blocks of spring and fall, because that's typically what a marathon, even if I don't run a marathon in that spring or fall. So every 2018 to late 2018, blah, blah, blah. I've seen improvement each time. And my last race in March 1st was the best race I've had for years. So I have momentum on my side. So who knows what will happen. I think if I didn't feel I had a shot at running under 2:11:30, then I don't think I would wait around and invest a lot of time to try to chase it. I would, maybe pick other goals and find something else I want to do with running. But I still feel it's within me. So yeah, I'm going to give it a go.
So are you looking then, I know you said that you may be looking at Toronto, but you may also be looking at Fukuoka or Valencia?
Yeah, I mean, Fukuoka and Valencia are now the big target races for any marathoner who really wants to get going in December. Valencia especially, it's a very deep race. But yeah, I mean, I'll see how training goes through the summer, like kind of July, and I'll have a better idea then and make that decision. I would like to run Toronto. That was, I like to run Toronto every fall. But if I do feel like I could run 2:11:30, then I'd want it to count towards the Olympics, and qualifying times don't start till December 1st. So that would be a big deciding factor.
Great. So we'll go to Teresa next.
Hi, Reid. What you were saying just tied right into what I was going to ask you. You said your best race was March 1st, which was a Canadian Masters record for you. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah, which is awesome. So congrats on that.
Thank you.
What are your, I'm also obviously a Masters runner as well, middle of the packer. What are some of your goals as you're getting older, but you still seem to be doing so well and improving, like you said, like sort of long-term goals with running, or I know you coach as well. What are some of those plans? And assuming that racing comes back for good, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, long-term goals, I really liked moving up to the marathon about 11 years ago. I just found that having such a different goal and training towards that goal really uplifted me, and it kind of remotivated me and made things fun again. So I want to increase the distance and see what Ultra has in store too, and just test my limits to see how far. I mean, I guess I would maybe not how far I'd go, but test my limits over an 80K race or a 100K race, and just to see what that's like. I think it'd be just like that new experience, and I've always liked running in the trails, so most ultras are in the trails, and I know I'd like that aspect of it. And as far as like in the next year, I've been targeting Masters records as I've been targeting my main goal, which is a fast marathon. But I haven't really gone out of my way to, like, I'm not going back to the track and doing stuff. It's more of just the same sort of races I've done the last few years, the 10K and the half marathon, 10 miles, stuff like that. So, yeah, I'd like to do a couple more of those. But really it's the main goal is just the marathon and trying to run up to 11:30. And if I can get myself in that shape, then I'll really make a point of trying to get to the right race.
So just a quick follow-up. Does Abdirahman give you any hope?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Krista Duchesne, Melinda Elmore, Abdi, Bernard Legat, Kenneth Mungara. He won Toronto a bunch of times. Like, yeah, anybody that's older. Well, Melinda's not older. I should just say she just ran faster. But I mean, anybody that's older than me that's running fast, it's like, okay, good. Like with especially Abdi, the trials, like, all right, he just ran 2:10:0 something. That's one of his fastest marathons ever, and he's 42 or 43. And I'm like, okay, I still have at least 2 more years, kind of thing. So yeah, it's great. I love seeing those guys run fast.
It's incredibly inspiring and encouraging. So I just want to say that.
Yeah.
So next question is from Josh. What's your favorite post-workout beer?
Oh, I mean, it changes all the time. But one that I actually really like right now, I just tried for the first time the other day, is actually I have it right here. It's this Collective Arts Earl Grey wheat. And I don't really taste much Earl Grey in there, but there's coriander, which reminds me of like Alefe. Blonde, which is a Belgian beer that I've had a lot of races in Belgium, so it kind of takes me back there too. So I'll say that one right now. I mean, or Leffe Blonde, or the Collective Arts Earl Grey Wheat. It can be different in 2 weeks, but yeah.
Okay, Ron.
Hi, Reid. I want to apologize in advance. We seem to be picking on you as being an old man here, but this is another question about sort of aging as a competitor. So to compete into your 40s, have you had to change your training at all just to remain competitive and to pursue your goals? Like, I know there's usually a fine line in marathon training to sort of get the volume and intensity and still stay healthy for race day. So has that changed as you progress in years and still able to compete at the level you do?
Yeah. So things changed quite a bit. I think last year, so for 2019, it probably got in my head more than it needed to, as far as thinking I had to back up my training. So not running as much, not doing as much intensity, and I really scaled it back. And I'm not. I don't regret doing it because I had a really consistent year. I think it set me up really well for this year. And now I'm kind of moving back to that because I'm like, okay, that works for staying healthy and being consistent. So that's what I need to do now because I'm not racing anytime soon. Yeah. But at the beginning of this year, I went back to the mentality of I know what training it takes to run under 2:11:30. I've done it on six different occasions. They haven't all been the same buildups. But I kind of know what it takes. And I just thought, I'm going to put myself in that position and do that kind of training. The other thing is the new shoes. So the Nike Vaporfly Next Percent. Those shoes allow me to run the paces that I used to run and also recover the way I used to recover, maybe even better, doing some of these longer sessions. So it's kind of a new ball game with these shoes that I really just started using in 2020. I tested them out just like briefly before that, but really consistently I started using them in mid-January. And training really clicked along. So no, I don't run 240K in a week like that I would occasionally do, or 230, something like that. I did before the races got postponed. I did a couple of weeks over 200. So still pretty high volume. Now, the main thing that I've changed though is there's something I experimented a bit about 4 years ago, and that was going to a 9-day cycle instead of a 7-day cycle. And I did it in 2016, I think, when I was training by myself because I wasn't meeting up with people, like on a Tuesday, Friday, Sunday type thing. My training group was running the Toronto Marathon, and I was doing Fukuoka. So I was on my own, and I enjoyed it, but I went back to 7-day cycle, and then I read Meb's book, and Meb talked about the 9-day cycle as well. And he did it because it just always gave you 2 days of recovery after every hard day. And that made a lot of sense to me, and similar to why I tried it before. Instead of trying to squeeze a long run in on the same week I did 2 hard workouts, that long run now comes a couple days later. And that 9-day cycle has really worked for me. I just feel over the course of say 3 weeks, I'm getting as much quality as I normally would, but I'm not trying to squeeze in a long run that's not that fast. So switching to a 9-day cycle, 1 long run every 9 days instead of 7, and then the 2 workouts leading up to that. So I think is the way to go if you're used to 7 days. If you do 1 workout a week and 1 long run, then a 7-day cycle can make a lot of sense. But if you're trying to squeeze more than that in, then for me, I had to just give myself more recovery.
Great.
Yeah, I know. In Meb's book as well, he had mentioned he started doing a lot more trail running. Just he found it easier on his body as well, just to softer surfaces and stuff.
Yeah, we just wish all the trails weren't closed right now.
Yeah, we're just still iced up, so probably another month before we
Yeah, we
open
don't
up.
have any ice. It's
Oh.
it's they all got closed because I guess people
yeah.
were
Yeah, you'd have too many
congregating.
people on them. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thanks
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah,
you're welcome.
every
Thanks.
trails are closed everywhere across the country,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But so our next question is from, and sorry if I pronounce your name wrong, Dania.
Dania. Yeah.
Dania. Okay.
I could have asked it, but
Okay, go ahead. Why don't you just ask it?
yeah. So I was wondering, Reid, is there anything in particular, like a negative thought, like a specific one that tends to come to your mind, something that you really nitpick about yourself, either while you're training on your runs or in the middle of a training cycle? And then my follow-up question is, what do you do to get out of that headspace? Or if there's not a particular thing, just what do you do to get out of the headspace if you're feeling down?
Yeah, negative thoughts, whether it's in a race or in a workout. When they do pop up in a workout, I kind of like it because I know it's going to happen in a race, and it gives me I can practice, kind of overcoming it. As much as you don't want this, the self-doubt, and that's what really most of the negative stuff is. It's just doubting that you can maintain that pace, or doubting that you're gonna finish the workout at the desired pace or whatever. And I don't know if it's a specific or particular thought that I have, but it happens all the time, and I basically just I have doubts about maintaining or picking up the pace, and I have to overcome it, and when it happens in practice, I can really I can play around with it a bit more as far as like like if I don't do that rep as fast as I want to, it's not a big deal. It's just one rep, and I can kind of risk a little bit and see, like, okay, you know what, like, just stay on it. But a lot of times too, once those negative thoughts come in your mind, I don't feel like I move the same way. I'm starting to fight myself, and I'm not as relaxed. And so I really, like, I know I need to move into a more positive, and when I say positive, also, like, I have a lot more confidence in what I'm doing. And when I have that confidence, I move better. And when I move better, I run faster as well. So it's like this whole thing. And it happens to me all the time. Yeah. And sometimes, it's as simple as just having a mantra. And the one I use a lot of times, and I've used it before and it's worked, is like, I just say, trust your fitness. And it's something that, when you really push and you're getting towards the end of the race or whatever interval, it does work, right? As long as you're, as long as you can still run with that, with the right form and stuff like that, because you can go out too hard, of course we all can, but if you're running within yourself and you're pushing your pace and you're pushing your limits, you can get there. So I wish I had the best answer, because otherwise I would just, use that one all the time. But really it's just trying to reframe things and trusting the work that I've done before. And sometimes when I'm just doing a workout, it's knowing that I'm going to get, like, whatever I'm getting through will make me stronger for the next one, will make me stronger for the next race.
Great.
Sorry, was there a second part that I missed?
No, well, I mean, it was more, what do you do to get yourself out of the negative headspace? But you kind of answered that by having a mantra and thinking about either way, the work that I'm doing is going to have a positive benefit on my training. That's a good idea.
Yeah. The mantra, like, those usually get me through. And sometimes it might just be like singing a song in my head too. That's like catchy. That's
Yeah, I find the races, that's a little bit easier for me, but then when it comes to the workouts, I find it trickier to get out of that headspace once you're in it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Because it doesn't count as much, right? Like the workout doesn't count for as much, so you can practice struggling.
Thanks.
So I know I said 45 minutes, but do you have an extra 15 minutes to keep going here? We got a lot of questions.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
Cool. I guess no one's really going anywhere. Hey? So the next one is from Wes, and he asks, "What's the weirdest prize you've ever won?" He said, "I once tried to win a last will and a test. I once tried to win a last will and a testament in a race sponsored by a law firm."
Well, that's a good one. I can't beat that. One of the most unusual prizes that I won was my weight in beer. That was at the Sean and Ed Brewery 5K a couple of years ago. So I think I won 18 six-packs. So it was cool. Gave them away to a lot of people, just because I wasn't going to drink that much beer, especially of the same kind. But yeah, it was pretty cool. Victoria Coates won the women's race. I feel like she got ripped off. She's pretty small. But I can't think of anything else that the Run for the Toad had some interesting prizes too. Often I think local artists would donate stuff, and so they were cool to take home. But yeah, no like wills.
Let's go to Richard's question. He asks, "How do you balance training life and family life, and with your wife training as well?"
Yeah, good question. Before, like about a month ago, 6 weeks ago, whatever, over a month ago, when we saw daycare, it was much easier. I usually just like take care of the kids in the morning. My wife would go to work, and then once the kids are at daycare from 9:30 till 4, I could just do all my training during that time. And if I didn't get my second run in, wait till my wife gets home. And Marie, she ran her first marathon last fall. She won the Hamilton Marathon. So she's training quite a bit. She's gotten the Strava itch this week. She's been going for some KOMs. I've been doing that a bit too. So it's kind of what we've been doing lately. But yeah, now that she's working at home full time, so now I do my runs. Usually she has to be on a call by 9. So I'm usually wrapping up my run at 8:45 and then doing my second run at 5 p.m. Which is, it's just fine. It's not a big deal. I can get that done. Yeah, and then watching the kids all day, it's been a lot of fun. They've just been home and trying to keep them entertained, and my challenge is to like see how long I can not turn the television on. So I didn't turn it on at all yesterday, so I gave myself a pat on the back for that. But that's an anomaly.
So if anyone doesn't follow Reid on Instagram, you can get updates on his kids all day, every day, right?
Yeah, they found one of my old iPods, and they think it's a phone, and they've been talking into it all day. So it's a couple clips of them on Instagram talking into an iPod to one of their friends from daycare, actually, giving them updates on Louis got a pedal bike. He's telling his friend all about his pedal biking.
Well, at least it's productive. So iPhone user, I think we found you. Go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me then?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, Reid. It's Sarah. I
Hey.
just wanted to know, would you, with all the races being canceled, do you think for the next few months or during the summer would be better to work on like keeping a base or a steady volume, but maybe working a bit more on strength training or something else, since I don't see any races in Quebec or Ontario or for me close by before at least October? Or would you continue to follow a training plan like as if I was supposed to do one in July, let's say, or maybe I was even going to do Ottawa? What do you think is the best for a recreational runner to keep up with their fitness, but should we be trying something else for the moment as well?
Yeah, good question. I think first and foremost, and this is what I tell my athletes, is you want to come out of this period with consistency. So that means staying healthy. So because you're not going to have access to physiotherapy, you really shouldn't be taking risks during this time. And base training, which when people say base training, it's often just not the intensity isn't there. So you're not just, everything's kind of just, say you're used to working out between 80 and 90% of your max intensity, you're kind of like 60 to 80%. And then sometimes base training actually involves a lot of mileage, like doing a lot of volume. But I'm not really prescribing that either right now. So for me, I was training for the Prague Marathon, and when that got canceled, I wasn't going to run over 200 kilometers anymore. I was in a week. Um, Although I'll run 170, and that might seem high to a lot of people, it's a manageable level for me. And then my workouts aren't quite as long either. So not having the intensity for a while is fine. And to build a big base and focus on strength training right now is a great time. I rolled out a strength training plan for my athletes in, I think, February, with the help of Anthony Romanu. And for a lot of my athletes, they had races coming up. So I was like, you know what, you don't need to jump into this right now. You're going to get sore. But now is that time where, you can ease into a bit of strength training, core exercises and whatnot. Is, nothing too intense, but, just trying these new exercises. Sometimes you get sore just using these, new muscles and whatnot. So now is the time where you can do a little bit of that stuff. And I find that if I need an extra day off, I just take that day, or an extra day between workouts, because there's no point in taking these risks that I might take if I'm going for a peak performance, and if I have a chiro and physio and blah 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 that I could see if I need to. So now it's just making sure that I'm making progress, but that progress might just be slow. And I think we all have the time. Like you said, you don't think there's gonna be races till October. That sounds pretty normal. I mean, if I was guaranteed a race in September, October right now, I'd be really happy. So we all have time, and so I think it's important to make progress, but not doing risks. But I think back to so I'm kind of rambling on this, but just doing base, say for 6 months, you're also not going to probably get the same. You're not going to get the same progress as if you had maybe break that up a little bit with some speed training where the volume comes down a little bit. Just if you do the same thing over and over again, you might just get stuck in a rut. It might feel monotonous, and maybe just doing that like a little, some 5K speed work or something like that will help get back into the long stuff as well. So I hope that answered your question.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'll just do a quick follow-up on that. You're coaching, you said you're coaching, and you're coaching how many athletes? And you've recently started coaching Krista Duchesne, am I correct?
Yeah, so I coach about 15 athletes. And my plan in 2020 was to increase that. But now with the kids, now I don't have much time during the day. I'm pretty good. But so hopefully after this pandemic, kids go back to daycare, and I have a somewhat normal life again, and I can carve out a couple hours during the day, then I'm gonna hopefully expand that. And I've been enjoying it a lot. I have athletes all over the place. A lot of them doing marathons, different ages and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
And where can people go if they're interested?
Well, I've never promoted myself. So when I do end up expanding, I will have a website, and then I'll put that out on Facebook and Twitter, Instagram. So you'll be able to find it once I'm ready to take on more athletes.
Great. So I'll pass it to Karen, who has a question.
Hi, Reid. It's Karen.
Hi.
My question is simple. What is it that you love so much from the marathon? I don't think you hate it. And to complement Teresa's question, do you see yourself in so many years from now? Do you see yourself racing or as a runner? Thank you so much.
All right. So what do I like with the marathon? I don't particularly like the distance. I think it's kind of a cruel distance, but it's one that's entrenched with a lot of history. And I think that's the reason why I like it, because you're kind of testing yourself over a cruel distance, which, I guess it's like a love-hate. And it's just, especially the events. I mean, the events are great, like the Ottawa Marathon, the Toronto Marathon, Boston, New York. The events themselves are just amazing. And just, meeting other runners and competing against the best runners and all that. So that's really what it comes down to, is just a lot like the competition over a really tough distance that has a lot of history. Sorry, what was the second part of this question?
Go ahead, Karen.
Yes, sorry. To complement Teresa's question, in so many years from now, when you're 64, do you see yourself as a runner or racing?
Still running.
Are you going after Ed Whitlock?
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, I have no plans on racing hard years from now. But I really do hope that I'm enjoying running, or at least some sort of whether it's cycling, running, or cross country skiing, anything that's outdoors, and still pushing my limits to some extent. Whether it's going after records or not, who knows?
Okay, and then we have 2 more questions here. So we'll go. Dante asks, what do your pre and post run routines consist of, besides kids jumping on?
Yeah. So pre run routine just keeps getting longer as I get older. But I always have tea in the morning, and usually oatmeal. My activation routine is pretty simple. I usually have a foam roller, do back mobility with that, couple glute firing exercises, psoas stretch. So no static stretches, but more dynamic stuff. If my back is tight, you get a couple of cross balls and do some exercises on that. I do Phil Wharton's active isolated flexibility routine the days I have workouts or I'm feeling like I just need a little bit of extra. So that's pretty much it. Eat a bit of food and do my activation exercises. And if I'm really gonna push myself that day, I definitely turn the music up loud and try to get in the zone.
What about post run?
Yeah, post run. First thing, just get a protein shake. If I'm feeling like it now, I'll do some exercises, but most of the time it's just about just relaxing, just get it in and do nothing.
Cool. I like that, the sounds of that. Our last question goes to Nevin.
Hey, Reid, good to see you. You spoke a bit in terms of getting into coaching, and maybe a bit more in terms of what you bring as from your athletic past or current athleticism to coaching, and as well in looking at how just the depth of Canadian marathoning is incredible right now. I remember reading Running Canada talking about the who to watch for Tokyo, and there was a deep list in both the men's and women's, including yourself. What do you think? Did you see this coming, and can Canada sustain this?
Yeah, good question. So, as far as coaching goes, I've always been very interested in my own training. Especially kind of from university on. So the 5K. 10K right through the marathon. So I've always took a lot of initiative of doing my own programming and kind of figuring out what works for me. When I go to Kenya, that was a really important time to talk to runners from different programs. So talking to a lot of Europeans and just people that had a lot of different training ideas. Talking to the coaches that would go there. Really like just piqued my interest even more. And it was just like, I got a lot of, a lot of info from talking to different coaches and different athletes over the years about, mainly just what works for them and what hasn't worked, stuff like that. And now as far as seeing the depth of Canadian marathoning, I did see it coming, but I'm actually surprised it didn't come earlier. In 2012, when Dylan, Eric, and myself made the Olympics, There was a lot of talk that we were kind of this, like, the first like wave of this, like this new era that was going to come in, and that by 2016 we were going to be fighting for our spots in the Olympic team. And then come 2016, Eric and I made it. There was a third spot that didn't even go. Like no one ended up running under 2:12.50, which surprised me. So I've kind of expected this more of a depth in the marathon for a while, and it didn't really come as soon as I thought it would. And now it's here for sure. I mean, the women is unbelievably deep. Emily Setlak ran 2:29, under 2:30, 2:29.40, I think, something like that. And she's I don't know what she was ranked in the last couple of years. Basically, she's like the fourth ranked on time, which is incredible. So it's a really fun time. And the guy side, although we only have two guys that have really been under 2:13 in the past couple of years, there's a lot knocking on that door, and a lot who have a lot of potential that are just starting to come into the marathon. So I think by next spring we'll see a couple more names on the men's side that put themselves in that, at least under that 2:13, hopefully under the 2:11.30 mark.
I would just add, watch out for the name Ben Presner in the marathon. Anyway,
Ben Preisner, yeah, Ben Preisner's been doing some really, really good workouts. Really impressed them. So I've known Ben since he's been in high school. Great kid, and he's been running that Boxing Day 10 mile the last few years. And this past year I didn't run it, but yeah, that's when I really that was just after his 63.0 something half at Toronto. So he moved up to the longer distances, and he's taken to them now.
Ben and I, just a personal anecdote, Ben and I were of the same age, so we raced in high school all the time, and he lapped me in a 3K. So, okay, so thanks for this. Do you just want to do a few sponsor plugs for us?
Yeah, Endurance Tap keeps me running long. Yeah, Nike's been good to me lately. She's been working really well, and Ciela keeps the sun out of my eyes. So yeah, I'm lucky to still be running and have people back me.
Nice. Well, thank you very much for this. I know we have people from coast to coast listening to this, so it's going to go up on YouTube too, so even more people can see it. And
great.
Thanks for doing this, Reid.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks a lot, Steven.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks for the questions. See you guys.